This is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and all the ink in the world, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God. For he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. Peace, Queen. How you doing? So again, this is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. Tonight's topic is entitled A History of How Black People Were Labeled Crazy and Insane, Part 2. Again, tonight's topic is entitled A History of How Black People Were Labeled Crazy and Insane, Part 2. I did Part 1 last week, I think. I got a lot of good response from it. So, and a couple people said that they was looking forward to look into Part 2. So, got my brother Marvin Gaye playing in the background. If you go back and listen to this song, Inner City Blues by Marvin Gaye, the things that he talked about over 25 years ago in this song is still ringing true today. Boy, I wish this brother was still amongst us. But some of the things that I talk about in my messages, since I'm a drug counselor and a therapist, work with people who have mental disorders, mainly children, but I concentrate a lot on substance abuse. This brother had issues with substance abuse, and that is what led him to an early premature death. His own father shot him in the backyard because he told him to stop coming there doing whatever he was doing. So drug abuse is really a huge menace in our society, so to speak. So if you got any family or friends that suffer from this, do what you can to help them, at least get them some help, because it is taking our people out of here by the droves. Before I get into my topic, I think I said this in my other message. Do you know it's a new report out that drug overdose is now killing more people in the city of Philadelphia than gun violence? I'm going to say that again. Drug overdose is killing more people in the city of Philadelphia than gun violence. And we know how violent Philadelphia can be. I'm only like an hour away from there. I'm right outside of Philly. And particularly fentanyl. I just lost a brother to drug overdose. Can put it, it's if you put it on your fingertip, that's enough to kill you, and it's up to 50 times stronger than morphine. This fentanyl, these opioids. So, it's a lot of traps out there that can take you off of this planet in a second. Drug overdose, drugs. Is it an accident or is it some design to it? I think we know the answer to that. We're going to keep bringing awareness to police brutality. They shot our brother 8 times in the back. Talking about Stephen Clark there in Sacramento, California. A report just came out that he was shot at least 8 times in the back, meaning he was fleeing. And there's many more cases just like it. I don't care what his character was like. I keep seeing all these reports. It's not that I don't care, but it don't justify a human being being shot down like a dog in his own grandparents' backyard. And what could he have done to deserve to get shot 20 times? This is the Hour of Power with Brother Sharif. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share. You may not hear this information anywhere else. 20 times? But you got people shooting up schools with innocent, defenseless children, and they walk away unscathed and get damn Burger King. This Dylan Roof and these other nuts and psychotic maniacs walk away unscathed. This is what's going on. This is what Marvin Gaye was talking about. trigger happy policeman. Listen to the lyrics, and I'm going to keep on playing it in the backdrop because it still rings true today. Inner City Blues by our brother Marvin Gaye. Now, a history of how blacks were labeled crazy and insane, part 2. Part 1, we talked about the doctors, different doctors, physicians, and scientists who deemed us crazy. First, they said we were inferior and less intelligent. Dr. Samuel Morton, he collected over 360 skulls, and he said because of the skulls, our skulls were different than whites. That proved that we were less intelligent and inferior. And then after him, Dr. Joshua Knott came out with a book. This is in the 1840s. Came out with a book entitled Types of Mankind, where he said that blacks were hypersexual, couldn't survive without the supervision of whites. And because our knee joints were somehow different than whites, it proved that we should be submissive knee benders to whites. And he said we were less inferior. That's Dr. Joshua Knott. And then after him, in 1851, a doctor by the name of Dr. Samuel Cartwright, the worst one of them all, came out with a book called The Physical Differences and Peculiarities of the Negro Race. And he said we had a mental disorder that he made up called drapetomania, which he said is characterized by the propensity of us wanting to break our master's property and run away. He said we had an actual mental disorder, and he called it drapetomania. And then another doctor, a physician by the name of Dr. Benjamin Rush. He was actually a signer of the Declaration of Independence, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And he said we had a mental disorder called nigritude. Nigritude. And he said because of our black skin, once again, it proved that we were inferior, less intelligent, and the only way for us to cure this was to become white. That's Benjamin Rush, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and a host of many more that came after. Yes, James Watson, the 1978 Nobel Peace Prize winner and one of the founders of the DNA molecular structure. He's a pioneer in DNA molecular structure. James Watson, just back in the early 2000s, he said that blacks fail IQ tests and they're less intelligent, and Africa is an inferior continent to Europe. And then a world-renowned historian named Hugh Trevor Roper. Hugh Trevor Roper, a world-renowned historian, said Africa has no history, it's dark and it's barbaric, and it has no history for now. And he's a world-renowned historian who has wrote many books. Hugh Trevor Roper, a historian, said Africa is barbaric, no history, it's dark there. That's what he said, this historian. Many, many more have sold this notion that we're less intelligent, inferior, can't survive without the supervision of whites, hypersexual, and we're crazy, insane, unsound mind. And then I talked about the many mental institutions that they opened for the colored insane. Central State for the colored insane in Virginia was the first one to open a mental asylum for blacks. That's in Virginia. In 1848, and the state raised $10,000 to help them open it. Then we talked about in 1880 how in Goldsboro, North Carolina, a hospital that is still going now called Cherry Hospital, opened a mental asylum, and they had a young man in there by the name of Junius Wilson, who was deaf but not mentally ill. He was falsely accused of raping a woman. They castrated him at the age of 17. Found in the 70s that he was not guilty of the rape, didn't release him, just moved into a less restrictive part of the mental asylum. It was called the Eastern Asylum for the Mentally Insane. And he just died in 2001, I believe, at the age of 95 or 96. His name was Junius Wilson. So it's a long history of labeling and institutionalizing us in these places. So now, bringing it up to more up-to-date times. In the 50s and 60s was a very turbulent time here in America, especially for those who were actually living during that time. It was a very turbulent time. All you got to do is ask your parents what was going on in the 50s and 60s. Couldn't drink at the same water fountain, couldn't go to the same bathroom, couldn't eat in the same restaurant. Segregation, Jim Crow. But we weren't just standing by. Again, this is the hour of power with Brother Sharif. We weren't just standing by, we were fighting back. Again, a very turbulent time. You had the Nation of Islam, you had the Civil Rights Movement. Of course, today marks, I believe, is it the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King being assassinated there in Memphis. I believe it's the 50th anniversary, something like that. You had him, the Civil Rights Movement, Black Panther Party. You had many of our people out there fighting against oppression. So now, I'm going to back it up a little bit, but I want you to hold on to that thought of what was going on in the 50s and 60s. Now, tonight, I want to explain to you how they started giving us, renaming mental disorders. It's the 50th, sis. Thank you. So I want to explain tonight how they started changing the language and redefining, that's the right word, redefining mental disorders to fit us and to discredit us and to give a justification to put us in modern day mental institutions. I just told you what they did back in the 1800s with these mental institutions. Now I want to tell you how they renamed and redefined mental disorders to specifically fit us, to discredit us and take us out the movement and eventually take us off the street. This is untold history, and unless you're in the field of like counseling or psychology, most people don't know about these horrific things that was and unjust things that was done to us in a field that's supposed to be for human service. Psychology, counseling, therapy, because I'm a therapist, that's supposed to be for humankind to help you through your struggles. But they use these things to put us under. Now, we've heard of the mental disorder schizophrenia. If you're listening, raise your hand and say, yes, I've heard of that, or I have a family member. Schizophrenia. It's 3 different types of schizophrenia. You got paranoid schizophrenia, when someone always thinks someone is after them. They're hallucinating. They hear auditory voices that's not there. You got disorganized thoughts, disorganized schizophrenia, right? Where you cannot organize your thoughts. You're very confused. And again, you're hallucinating, hearing voices. But that's called disorganized schizophrenia. And then the third subtype of schizophrenia is what you call catatonic schizophrenia, where you just sit there still, almost like a statue in a stupor, and someone has to physically move you. You're just sitting there staring. You've probably seen that before, where someone may just be sitting there. Most of the time, they're not saying anything. That's what you call catatonic schizophrenia. Now, schizophrenia was first diagnosed or identified, and schizophrenia is a German word that means the splitting of the mind. That's why sometimes they say split personality. Schizo, where they get the word schizophrenia. Phrenia meaning mania. So the splitting of the mind, mania, right? This was first identified in America in 1915 by a doctor by the name of Eugene Bueller. Eugene Bueller first identified schizophrenia in America in 1915. And it was said that this mostly affected stay-at-home white European mothers. That's what it mostly affected back in 1915. Stay-at-home white mothers. They said they were so stressed out because they was having so many babies and the men were out working that it caused